Natasha, I think my sentiments are actually fairly similar to yours on the issues of transhumanism, humanity plus, and leadership, which is not surprising. I mean, one of the fun things about being involved with H plus over the last years has just been being involved with a great group of people like you and Howard and the rest of the board, plus all the authors for the magazine. So I was going to hit on some of the same points, but taking a little more abstract point of view, just because I often like to look at things from all sorts of different perspectives. How do I flip ahead? I hit the arrow. Does that work? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, click the arrow on both screens or one screen if you want to keep a single image on one and move the other one.
Okay. No, I need to.
Okay, take your time.
So, many of you know my research focus is on artificial intelligence, and I've thought a lot about cognitive science and the human brain and the human mind in that context. And there are many analogies between how a mind works and how an organization works. And I want to talk about one of those, just to kind of put the idea in your mind and see how you may think about leadership differently in this context. So, first of all, just to start on the simplest level, one can think of a mind or a brain and of an organization as having sort of similar control structures. And this is a very limited view in both cases, but it's also a popular view in both cases. I mean, we think about the brain as having a sort of executive control system that passes down sort of strategic commands to other parts of the brain and mind, then carry out tactical decisions, and then finally that goes to sensory motor systems. And you have a sort of hierarchical view, which no one thinks is totally top-down. There's top-down and bottom-up feedback. And of course, the diagram of an organization is the same way. The diagram I put on the screen is sort of a tongue-in-cheek depiction of the hierarchy of world government, which I realize you can't see it very well on the Second Life screen. If I've been thinking about what the screen looked like, I would have just made some pretty pictures instead. But you get the idea. I mean, you have the managers at the top, the sub-managers beneath, and so forth. And this is it's a nice picture. It's a way of looking at things that has some meaning to it, but yet it's also a rough approximation. One of my favorite philosophers is Friedrich Nietzsche, and one of the many wise things Nietzsche said is, free will and consciousness, they're like the army commander who takes responsibility after the fact for what the soldiers already did. In other words, the brain and mind do stuff by complex subconscious dynamics. Then the consciousness comes in and says, yes, I caused that. I did this for this and this reason. And that story can be very convincing. A similar story that the philosopher Thomas Metzinger has identified is the phenomenal self, like the self model each of us has. My model of myself is Ben Goertzel. Like I'm Ben Goertzel. I'm 44 years old. I work on AI. I help with Humanity Plus. I have 3 children. This story we tell ourselves about who we are, which we mistake for our actual selves, but really it's just a story. But all these stories of reflective consciousness, free will, and self, even though they're fictions, they're valuable fictions, because they feed back into our unconscious minds and they affect the dynamics of what we do. It's interesting to think about how this notion of the illusion of free will and reflective awareness and the illusion of the phenomenal self, how does that connect to leadership? how does that connect to organizations? And the conclusion you come to is that the leadership or the management of an organization is sort of illusory in the same sense that free will and the self are. In other words, the idea that leaders lead is largely an illusion. It's not really the dynamics. Really, things just happen in complex ways that we don't understand, and it's more self-organized and distributed. On the other hand, the illusion that leaders lead may be valuable. That's a story. It's a story that feeds into the unconscious, the distributed dynamics that really runs the organization. And this provides a sort of interesting way to think about any organization, including an organization like H+. I mean, you think about what is the self of an organization like Humanity Plus? What is the model of Humanity Plus that Humanity Plus creates to tell itself about itself? And if you try to map this sort of weird cognitive science metaphor into traditional management theory, you come up with the idea that the self, to be really effective, it should reflect the reality of what's happening in the mind, even though it's just a model, and there should be an intensive feedback so that what's really happening, the unconscious dynamics, should impact the self should then guide the unconscious dynamics. And of course, that's very analogous to standard ideas in modern agile management theory, wherein the management and the leadership should interact very closely with the customers and with employees. So there's a feedback, and the control system kind of emerges naturally from and interacts with the whole organism. And I think this is actually somewhere that Humanity Plus has not succeeded that well. I mean, to some extent, the self model of Humanity Plus is sort of that it's the vanguard of the transhumanist community. I mean, that we are the leaders, and we are the ones who are out ahead. Yet, of course, we all know that this is sort of notional, because amazing things are happening in the world, and humanity is moving rapidly toward transhumanity, and probably would be doing so roughly as fast without Humanity Plus around. So the question that I have when I think about the direction Humanity Plus should go is how do we engage more richly with the world as it's evolving, with the transhumanist community, with our own membership, and with everyone else who shares our ideals and ideas, but is not formally affiliated with the organization. How do we get that interaction and that synergy going so that we're really more tightly coupled with all the amazing changes happening as we gradually become transhuman, rather than sort of reporting on it and symbolizing it, but not all that richly synergizing with it? And since I only had 10 minutes, I'm not going to try to answer that question. I just thought I would pose a slightly different way of thinking about it. I think the analogy between minds and organizations is quite rich, much more so than I've identified in this brief talk. They both operate according to similar system theoretic principles. And I think if you look at the properties that make some people more effective and more appealing than others, a lot of those same structural and dynamical properties would make an organization more successful and more appealing than others. Genetically engineered cyborg babies. Cool. Do you have some? Well, the other idea is to make a superhuman AI and let it rule the world. Then it can rule this organization for us, and we don't need to worry about anything else. But all right, let me see a question here. How do I propose to help people transition as smoothly as possible from one media to the next, or will the rich get there first? Well, some people are becoming transhuman faster than others. It's not necessarily the richest people. Many of the richest people in the world are fairly retro in their taste and understanding. It's definitely people in the upper 20% of world income. And I don't know how to solve that problem, but I do think one of the pluses of Humanity Plus as an organization is we do have a global reach. I mean, we have members in countries all over the world, and we do actually foster interactions between people in lower income parts of the world. There are no feedback loops in my organizational model, is a question. Well, of course, any real organization has many, many feedback loops. Those diagrams I put on the first slide were just kind of a straw man positioning the traditional hierarchical model, which is not accurate. All right, I've had too much time answering too many questions. We'll have more questions at the end. So let's go to the next speaker.
Okay, there's my microphone. Now let's see if I can get anywhere near the stage. Where did the stage go? It's somewhere over here. Stand, it says. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? I'm hitting the thing that says stand.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, and there's all kinds of things called manage and edit and build. Maybe I should turn around and look at you. Okay, am I standing in the journal? Click on the stand. Okay. There's a black box. I'm trying to click on that. How about, and this thing that says stand, manage.
Click on the stand.
Okay, it's not doing anything when I click on the stand. Maybe I'll just move forward a little bit so you can see me.
Yes.
Wait, and a little bit over this way. And, okay, now can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, should we start?
Please, thank you.
Oh, okay, very good. All right, I've been thinking out the question of leadership and how in the world to get it in 10 minutes and how to make it relevant to Humanity Plus. And I boiled a few things down to 3 P's and 2 other words. The 3 P's, if I can remember them, are passion, persistence, persuasion. And those were the 3 I'd come up with, and I thought I was doing just fine. And then 5 minutes before this meeting, something stunned me. I received an email as part of an emailing list from a guy named Bob Lefsetz, who's very influential in the music industry, an industry that I used to be a part of. And it was a testimonial to, of all people, me. And it made me realize, in the way that he was describing what I had done in the music industry, that I had left 2 things out. Passion is important. Persistence is extremely important. Persuasion is powerfully important. But I had left out truth, and I had left out vision. And those are the 2 things that really make you a leader. Once upon a time, when I was about 11 years old, I was walking through, I was about to take a shortcut up the driveway of some neighbors I'd never met, and through their backyard to get to my best friend's house. These neighbors, who I had never met in my life, stopped me, not because they were upset that I was going up their driveway, but because they had a present for me. They took me inside, and they gave me a stack of magazines they had kept in a closet. It was Collier's magazine from approximately 1951 and 1952, and it embodied the most extraordinary act of leadership I've ever seen, an act of leadership that changed my life, and an act of leadership of the kind that Humanity Plus can assert or exert. It was a series of multi-page articles with gorgeous, astonishing illustrations of a vision that came from 3 guys. They were named Willy Ley, Werner von Braun, and Chesley Bonestell. And back in the 1930s, when Willy Ley and Werner von Braun were kids. They grew up on a vision that was originally brought to this world by a part-time seller of stock and bonds in Paris, a man who in his spare time thought he could write. And obviously anybody around him from his mother to his wife knew that was a ridiculous idea. And he wrote a story about a giant cannon, a cannon that had actually been invented at the end of the Civil War, just shortly before he was writing, putting a carriage inside of it, using explosives, and blowing it to the moon. Ridiculous idea. I mean, anybody can tell you that's ridiculous. It was From Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne. There were two guys who grew up reading From Earth to the Moon, and the vision was so compelling to them that they developed it in another form. They said that if you took these things the Chinese had invented, basically long pipes stuffed with explosive materials, and you used them, you could launch humans into space in a much better way than firing them in a cannon. These guys were Hermann Oberth, I think his name was, in Germany, and Tsiolkovsky in Russia. And Willy Ley and Werner von Braun grew up on the visions of Tsiolkovsky and Oberth. They, in turn, well, they managed to get a massive government subsidy because there was a man who was power-hungry in Germany and was willing to hand out any kind of subsidies needed to make war machines. And he gave that subsidy to Werner von Braun, who took rockets, the things that Werner von Braun was obsessed with, rockets the width of your forearm, and turned them into the rockets that bombed London, the V-2s. When the war was over and Werner von Braun made it to the United States, he took his vision. To him, rockets were a way of getting mankind into space. And he developed them for Hitler, not because he believed in Hitler, but because he believed in developing the tools to get mankind into space, which is an expansion of human powers of the kind that Humanity Plus works on. And when he was here, he had a vision of a space program. He and Willy Ley found Chesley Bonestell, the guy who designed the facade of the Chrysler Building, and who was, in his spare time, an obsessive space artist. And together they put together space visions that absolutely blew my mind when I was 11, and I've been operating on those visions ever since. Back to the tools of leadership. Passion. These guys were operating on their most powerful personal passion. They were dedicated to rockets and getting humans into space with everything in their bones and life. They were part of a process that demonstrated multi-generational persistence. It was a process that started with From Earth to the Moon in roughly 1871. And by the time these guys were putting it to paper, it was 78 years, almost 80 years later, by the time they were putting it into Collier's magazine. And they had the power of persuasion. They managed to get into one of the biggest magazines in the United States of America with some of the biggest, most extraordinarily visually compelling pictures you have ever seen in your life. Humanity Plus has a vision of the future. The people in Humanity Plus are very, very passionate about it. The people in Humanity Plus believe that that passion is a truth, a powerful truth that has to be conveyed to other human beings and translated into reality. Now the trick is to do what Willy Ley, Werner von Braun, and Chesley Bonestell did, and get that vision in pictures so people can see it, and get it into the media at the very center of things where nobody can miss them. In other words, we have to use the powers also of publicity, which is something else I've been involved in my lifetime. That's it. Passion, persuasion, persistence, vision, and truth. Included. Do you want me to sit? Okay, let me go back to my seat. Whoops. How do you get off the stage? Ah, there we go. Whoops, I'm seated backwards.
Hi everybody, my name is Martine in First Life, Vitology, and Second Life. I'd like to start by congratulating
I can't hear Martine. Brothers?
I see that Martine just went offline.
Yeah, she's probably going
She
to
crashed.
right back in.
Yeah, she in a couple of minutes will be back, I'm sure. Yeah, online again. Just stand up and sit again by clicking the chair. That's the fastest way.
Hey, can you guys hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So I just want to, first of all, congratulate Ben on getting the Visionary Award. He absolutely, positively deserves it, and I'm really glad that we can recognize him this way. So thank you, Natasha, for your initiative in doing that as well. I understood that I was supposed to talk for like 5 minutes about leadership, so I just have a few slides that basically summarize what I know about leadership. First of all, is that it is about inspiring people. And in that regard, the H Plus movement, I think, is really lucky to have Natasha as the chairman because she is very, very inspiring. Natasha, you definitely inspire me and inspire Bina every time we get together with you. So having inspirational leadership is definitely the beginning point of leadership. And I think we're totally there with the H plus. Secondly, and it kind of follows from that, is to avoid micromanagement. It basically comes down to the whole idea about if you inspire people what to do, they'll figure out a million different ways to do it. But if you are instead going to tell people how to do things, then it's like you suck all the inspiration away from them. I've seen Natasha and Ben and Max, the other leadership of H+. You guys really are never done anything I would at all consider like micromanagement. You're always there giving the big picture and empowering everybody else. So I just don't think we have to worry about that micromanagement situation. We've got enough amazing people in the organization that we'll all figure out what to do if we just got somebody, giving us inspiration and leadership, which we definitely have here. So let's see. I've just got a couple of other last things to say here. I apologize for being on this MacBook Air because it's taking like forever to download. But the last couple of things that I wanted to say are summarized in the PowerPoint charts that I have up there. Basically, that we've got to be practical. If you give people completely unrealistic goals, they're basically just going to spin their wheels. If people are inspired, they'll try to do them, but if the goal is unrealistic, then everyone's just going to spin their wheels and waste their time. So I like to think in terms of practical goals, and for humans the way we are right now, something that's going to take more than 10 years is not going to seem very practical. So I would urge us to focus on goals that we can achieve like within 10 years that practically can be achieved. They don't have to be easy. I totally agree with Margaret Mead, who said it just takes a few people who are committed and passionate to get something done. That's the only way to get things done. So we can have like really stretch goals, but I would focus on like near-term technology, like Valkyrie Ice is saying, near-term technology. That is like a key leadership point for us. Okay, well, that pretty much, I think if we just have vision, we stay away from trying to lead people by the nose, we employ like crowdsourcing, and just let a million different diverse ways come around, we'll achieve our goal. And that's really my last slide, is to design diversity. We're not smart enough, none of us are smart enough to know exactly how to achieve the transhumanist vision, but if all of us together pursue our own different avenues, out of like crowdsourcing and out of diversity, some of us will succeed, and then all of the rest of us can replicate those methods. So it's like
Testing.
We hear you. I guess Martine will be back. Yeah, Martine is back online.
I think she was just about finished anyway, so maybe we can wait till the end and ask her questions. Giulio, I believe you are the next speaker.
Indeed.
Oh, there's a naked. Oh.
But I think Martine is right back.
Oh, okay.
Let's wait. She wants to finish her talk and saying something more, perhaps. Welcome back, Martine.
Let's see. Oh, this must be the last slide. Thank you, Martine.
Okay, I'm next then. That Martine is standing at my side is really a great honor, but I think it has more to do with computer malfunctioning. Thank you very much for the great talk, Martine.
Humanity Plus problem-solving tasks in our extended community. Then
I'd like to ask you both presentation boards in sync. For those who don't know me, my name is Giulio Prisco. I go by Escatoon Magic in Second Life. Feel free to add me to the friend list. Okay, what I want to talk about is how to make transhumanism fun again. The fun aspect, I think, is one of the most important aspects of transhumanism. We should never forget that. You'll notice that I have a lot of old pictures in my presentation, pictures dating decades back, because in some sense I'm going to propose for leadership issues in transhumanist movement a kind of return to the past. Well, not all of us, because that was in 1968, but some of us can remember the great emotion and excitation we felt when we saw the beautiful 2001 A Space Odyssey film by Sir Arthur Clarke and Stanley Kubrick. And that was the future we expected in 2001. What we got instead of a space odyssey in 2001 was September 11 in 2001. A few days ago, like everybody else, I think, I was watching the September 11 memorial, and one of the speakers on CNN was saying that we didn't realize at that time how important September 11 had been. And as a matter of fact, it has kind of set the social and cultural tone for all the decade of the noughts. It's been a very important thing, and it has changed our way of thinking. And that has had an impact on, of course, on the transhumanist community as well. What do I mean by all these words? I'm kind of comparing the words that we used to read on transhumanist mailing lists in the 1990s with the words that we had been reading in the 2000s. We were talking a lot about optimism, about immortality, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, mind uploading, science fiction, virtual reality, and I have seen that over the last decade some new words have started to appear, like, for example, existential risks, certain emphasis of political correctness. That doesn't always happen, and I must say, thanks to the leadership of Humanity Plus, has not been the case for the last couple of years. But I remember that a few years ago, when I used to sit on the board of directors of Humanity Plus, which at that time was called the World Transhumanist Organization, I was very much concerned about a certain detranshumanization of the transhumanist community, and I used to complain about that. At some point I even resigned from the board of the organization, because I had a feeling that transhumanism was becoming kind of boring, and that our main concern was becoming things like appeasing the bioludites and having endless political discussion, red versus blue versus green versus black, instead of the very fun and very interesting, perhaps a bit naive, but very inspiring things that we were discussing a few years before. I would never deny the importance of taking into account in our thinking things like existential risks. The risks are very important, but I think our basic attitude should still be inspired by the kind of dynamical optimism and no-limit approach that we had in the 90s. This seminar is about leadership, and I completely agree with Martine, who said that leadership is not about micromanagement. Leadership is about vision, it's about inspiration, it's about offering some motivation to people, and the rest is management, which of course is also a very important thing. But there is a difference between management and leadership. In order to offer leadership, we must offer a vision, and this vision must be emotionally compelling enough to, motivate people to do things, to kind of get up in the morning with enough interest in life and enough energy and motivation to do something good. And I do agree with Valkyria. Transhumanism is about making our dreams reality. We should never forget dreams. Dreams are the designers of reality. And a very important thing. So this is the kind of attitude that I have been missing in transhumanist discussions for most of the last decade. I feel that we should inspire transhumanists with beautiful dreams, a grand vision, hope, optimism, science, and we should offer inspiration in order to push people to action. In some sense, I'm really proposing to go back to the 90s. Or even better, let's go back to the 60s. The 60s has been a magic decade. We have seen people walking on the moon. There have been so many new and world-changing cultural movements to be compared with the kind of much more sedate environment that we have seen in the following decades until now. This picture is taken from an article that I have written on the Space Collective website. I will give you the URL after that, and the article was titled Back to the 60s, Back to the Future, and Onward to the Stars. And in order to make this concept very clear, I want to spell the title in full. Let's go back to the fucking 60s.
Thank you, Giulio.
Hold on, Natasha, I haven't finished yet. You have seen that all my view graphs are from 2001. This is the moment where humankind begin taking their evolution in hands with new technology for human empowerment and radical change. I just have a couple of things left to say. So don't worry. A very important thing was space. We used to talk a lot about space. Now people have not been on the moon for almost 40 years. We should go back to the moon, then to Mars, and then to the planets. That's something very important in order to inspire transhumanists. And that will open the road to the stars for an infinite cosmic adventure, using a very advanced technology that will permit us to roam the galaxies, traveling on electromagnetic beams or other kind of radiation as immortal uploads, without acknowledging any limits. And I think this is real transhumanism. And this is the kind of vision that we should offer. I want to end my presentation by comparing what I just said with something that Martine said in the previous presentation, which is that we should focus on near-term technologies. And I do think that one point of view does not exclude the others, because of course I also think that we only far-looking transhumanist visions can really inspire us to do something effective in today's world, here and now. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Giulio, and thank you for reminding us of the importance of space and early transhumanists' desire to expand into the cosmos, something we ought never to forget. Hi, Linda, are you heading towards the podium?
I am. All right, let me just get set up here for 1 second. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I too loud?
No, you're perfect.
Without having to hold it down.
Linda, why don't you change the right screen as well? If you click on the other screen and press the arrow, it'll go to bring up your... Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Try this again. Okay, alright, I see that it is working. Is there a way for me to lock the talk button so that I don't have to hold it down?
I don't know what version you're on.
Oh, sorry, I'm on a Mac.
I have no idea, but just start.
Alright.
So we can...
I think if I keep my voice down, hopefully it won't echo. Or is it echoing now? Sorry, it is taking me a little while to get used to the lock mode right visible inside it. You know, it seems like it clicks off occasionally. Sorry. Alright.
Yes, my laptop button has a lock button inside it.
Okay. Alright, I've got it. Got it. Thank you. Alright. Thank you, Natasha, for asking me to speak, and thank you to, and congratulations to Ben for the award. And I'm not sure that I have a lot more to add to what all the other speakers have said, but here are some of my thoughts. Yeah, I can hear the echo myself. I turned down the volume a little bit more softly. Got a little bit better? So, alright, my second slide, the one, rising tide lifts all boats, is a quote that you all might be familiar with, that is attributed to John F. Kennedy. He, he was certainly one of my favorite heroes. I know that he was also one of Martine's, and I don't believe that he was talking about economics. He was talking about being a good leader. He was talking about how to inspire, how to bring about a rising tide with praise, with generosity. And I don't necessarily mean fiscal generosity. I mean a generosity of spirit, a willingness to extend oneself in order to help others promote these ideas. It's one of the things I really like about the idea of Humanity Plus and discussions of kindness. And even though we all do not have similar philosophies, I think that it is important that we discuss ideas with respect toward one another, and that we certainly appreciate one another. It is the way that we can move this Humanity Plus forward, I believe. Not with arguments, but with kindness, respect, appreciation for different viewpoints. You might be familiar with the quote, too, from Ralph Nader: "The job of a leader today is not to create followers, it is to create new leaders." And so we want to think about acts of leadership, not necessarily leaders per se. Gosh, I have a typo in here. But leadership means having the public welfare good in mind, not just enhancing the self. It's one of the things that I think Humanity Plus is very good at talking about, but I think it's important not to lose the forest for the trees. That is, we're not talking about necessarily just enhancing yourself or individual, but about making this a better place, a better world to live in. And certainly one of the things I've heard Martine say time and time again, too, and we learn in law school, is that one of the best ways to lead is by asking questions, not by issuing commands. It is the process of thinking that is more important than the answer. And pardon the clanging in the background, it's one of my doggies getting a drink of water while I'm talking. And I'm going to keep this talk fairly, yes, doggies. It's one of the, I'm going to wrap up the conversation fairly quickly. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. This group, I think, is inherently a number of leaders. Certainly the people I know, Giulio and Martine and Natasha, and Ben, you are all, wonderful leaders. And it is a privilege to be able to speak with you. Certainly one of the things that I'm emphasizing time and time again is that we are all stakeholders, we are all interconnected, we all have a stake in this issue. And that good leadership encourages everyone's evolution. I particularly am happy about the notion of transhumanism going to, or evolving to, the notion of humanity plus. There is something very appealing to the thought of being more than human. Transhumanism, I think, has gotten sort of a bad rap because it has suggested an otherness, something other than humanity. Humanity plus, I'm just so pleased that it's evolved to that, because I'm proud to say that I want to be more than human. And I want all of us to be more than human. This has been repeated several times throughout the talks. Perpetual optimism. It's so easy to fall into a negative mode sometimes, and to try and battle with those who are naysayers. But it's just important for us to keep on keeping on. Thank you so much for listening. And in my final slide, I think I have my contact information. If anybody wanted to contact me. And I'll turn off the speaker now. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, everyone. And reflecting back on each point of interest, it seems that my presentation and my urge was for a motion for change. Ben's sense of the phenomenal self, Martine's strategic awareness, Howard's insightful recollections, Giulio's visionary daringness, and Linda's sense of kindness and positive embrace signify a sensibility that there is a willingness to take a look at who we are and many of our issues that we have to face. I think Giulio brought these up quite beautifully, and Martine offered us a strategy of thinking, as well as Howard, and Ben brought it into the individual and looking at the system of organizational structure within an individual and a group. And the understanding of both daringness and a positive embrace is quite lovely thought. what I'd like to do now is turn it over to the audience and allow you to have an opportunity to ask the speakers questions about their talks, or about transhuman in general, or about Humanity Plus, our structure and some of our goals, and how we might think about changing and bringing about a stronger organization and a more visionary aim for 2012. Since we're reaching that in a few months, might as well start planning now. I'd like to ask you that when you post your question in the comment bar, that you put who the question's to. For example, just put or for Giulio, or for Martine, or for Ben, or for Natasha, etc. And make your question short, and I'd like to ask those who answer the question, whether it's a speaker or someone in the audience, to keep it 30 seconds. And I know this will be difficult to do, maybe a minute if it's really impassioned, but I'd like to give everyone an opportunity to participate. So, do we have a question from the audience? Testing.
Can I just toss in a little dialogue with Ben? Oops.
No, let's leave it open for the audience to ask questions first. And I'm not going to answer that one question. Okay, I'll answer this first question, and Howard, if you want to ask Ben a question, but let's try to engage the others. I think what we expect to do to get more mainstream coverage is to try to return to some of our strategies back in the 1990s, when there was tremendous amount of press coverage of those of us looking at the future. The problem is, when you're a little bit ahead of the times, you're interesting, and then when society catches up, it moves elsewhere. So I think that is a good topic, and one that we should develop strongly. We need to look at our assets, but I don't think we should do that until we have a very clear aim for 2012. We could take it back to the 90s, I suppose. But or did you want to pose a question to Ben now?
Mine's more philosophical. Ben was talking about the extent to which will is predetermined. And he reminded me, because Ben and I are both fans of Nietzsche, and the notion that you can hold destiny in your hands, which is what really transhumanism or Humanity Plus is all about, holding destiny in your hands and pushing it forward. And there's a story of Pecos Bill. It's an old tall tale from the 19th century. A bunch of cowboys in Texas are sitting around bragging about who can break the most ornery horse. And after three of them give their horse stories, Pecos Bill speaks up and he says, "You see that tornado over there? I can tame that tornado." And he slaps his saddle on the back of the tornado and rides it as it bucks and tries to throw him, and writhes to the east and writhes to the west and picks up an outhouse here and there. And finally, the tornado, because of sheer persistence, because of will, because of the power of Pecos Bill's will to stick there, the tornado gives up. And finally, the tornado lets Pecos Bill tell it which way to go, left, right, or center. And what Ben is implying is that the tornado is the one with all the power, and what the story of Pecos Bill implies is that Pecos Bill has all the power, but in reality, they both count. You can't have Pecos Bill taming the whirlwind without a whirlwind. However, the power of will to change the future is incredibly potent, no matter how much will is predetermined. And the spirit that Giulio was raising of the 60s and the 90s is the spirit of taking over and using will to take the future in the direction that we want it, rather than laying down and let will or letting destiny run over us, which is the spirit of 9/11.
I think most transhumanists are scholared in Nietzsche and appreciate the sense of will. There's a downside to Nietzsche as well, and the lack of respect for the human and other issues there. But I think his vision exceeds any question about his sources. Ben, did you want to answer?
Was there a question?
No, it was just it was just a reply to something that you were bringing up.
Yeah. I mean, I found nothing to disagree with there. I mean, I think it's an interesting question as we approach what appears to be a singularity. I mean, in what sense do we have control over the course of what happens at all? And we really don't. We don't know that. We don't understand social dynamics or technological evolution well enough to know that. Are there attractors that we're just almost inevitably moving towards just because of the dynamics of technology and society? Or is it more of a bifurcation where we could go one way or another, or it could go multiple directions depending on specific things that we do now? I mean, it's interesting, and anyone who's trying to direct what happens, whether it's a transhumanist organization or the leaders of a major country or a corporation, they're really coupled with the complex nonlinear dynamics of what's really happening, and they're only having a limited influence and also a more complex influence than they can understand. You know, on another topic, there's all this chat going past on the media. So this may be an amusing context to throw out there an idea I've been talking to a few people about, which is so we're talking about how to get more people interested in and excited about transhumanist ideas explicitly. One idea I had thought about was to try to create a holiday for the future. You think about all the holidays we have; these are all about past events. But what if there was a holiday specifically oriented toward future events and making a better future? So what if you could have many of them? You could have a Singularity Day and an Autolact War Day for the future war, or one could have simply a future day to try to bring people together around the idea of creating a better future. So I mean, I'm not sure if that's a serious idea that would be a good thing to do it or not, but it's interesting to think about how much we focus on memorializing the past and how little society focuses on pushing toward the future, even though things are changing so much, and technological change is the defining factor of our day.
It used to be the World Fair used to be a vision of the future. I don't know what's happened to that, but it certainly was a time and a place where people came together with innovation and all sorts of possibilities like streamlined monorails and space exploration and just visions. Most of that is now in different fields like technology or, media, gaming,
Actually,
SIGGRAPH.
Natasha, there was one of these World's Fairs just recently, but it was in China, and it got very little publicity in the United States. And I think Ben's idea of a future day and trying to put it on the map is fabulous because it will implant the future in people's perceptions. And right now, people are looking down, not up. We have to make them look up toward a future.
I still wonder if future is the correct word. I agree 100% that a day, a holiday, a festivity, and a day for mimetic engineering and all sorts of ideas to generate.
Yeah,
future is difficult right now because of the financial situation of the world. I mean, take a look at Greece and then, the United States, and it seems to be almost spiraling, not out of control, but spiraling on the edge. I wonder if there's another term besides Future Day that would ring a stronger emotion with people that exemplifies the future and exemplifies innovation. I'm sorry?
When we tossed this idea around in the group for a few weeks ago, and there were a bunch of suggestions, but the only one that really hit it on the nose was the Future Day. And when we have these periodic crashes, we have them every 68 years, approximately. And when we have these crashes, we lose our sense of a future. And the thing that pulls us out of the trenches and back up onto the landscape and charging toward a future is somebody's willingness to give us a vision of the future. In the 1930s, that vision of a future came from what seemed to be a defeated vision, the vision of 1929 to electrify every home in America. That seemed absolutely absurd. Electrification was only for rich people. There was no way you were going to electrify every home in America. And under FDR, we put together the TVA, and we put together the Hoover Dam, and we made a serious attempt, while people were unemployed, to employ them in building an infrastructure that actually could electrify every home, and that focus on the future pulled us into the future.
I like the idea of yes day, like a word that has a positive connotation to it, but it's not just optimistic, but it has it goes back to the idea of the phenomenal self, the can do, the ability to change and accept change and embrace change. When you think of histories in the past and this tethering to the past, it's out of fear of change, and somehow innovation and change and vision all fit together in something else.